Hello, and let's go ahead and set up the project for module number 4. So when you launch Xcode, you come up with the welcome screen, and we're gonna start a new Xcode project. So we select a new Xcode project. Uh, when you select a new Xcode project, Xcode gives you their screen, and uh, and it asks you to select a template for the new project. So we're gonna choose iOS and applications, single view application, and then click next. You need to provide a name for the project, so use your last name for the purpose of use an identifier for the context you're in. For my class, use your last name underscore the project name. If you are in an organization, or even if you're doing this work for yourself, don't just put the project name. Find a prefix or a postfix that can tell you or categorize or organize your projects together. So I'm gonna call this music learning, or you can call it project 4 or module 4, anything that you want. The organization name and the organization identifier. The identifier is only important if you're gonna register with the Apple developer account, and the importance comes that you're gonna have to specify an identifier in the Apple developer account. Whatever you specify there need to match what you put here as an organization identifier. The language is Swift, the device is iPhone, and uncheck these three. This is a beginning approach, so we don't need to do, we're not going to do unit testing, user interface testing, and we're not using core data. Then next, it will ask you where do you want to save the project. So next is going to ask you where to save, and I have a folder here, and I made another folder for these projects, and it's currently empty, so I'm going to save everything in that folder. And I have here the Finder window for that same folder. So you will see the moment I create the project, a folder will be created here in that same location. This location can be anything. So whatever place on your drive you save the project to, you can reach it through the Finder window. So I'm going to say put the project in that folder and say create. So Xcode will assemble all the project files according to the template that we selected, and will save those project files to the folder. If you go to the location on your drive where you saved the project, so I saved the project here. Here is the project folder. It has the same name as the project name. If you expand that folder, you will see inside it there is another folder with exactly the same name, and then there's a configuration file, Xcode project file. The project explorer in Xcode reflects that. So here, and you can see the same icon. So this is the configuration file, and this is the internal group. It's called the group here, which corresponds to an actual folder on your project. If you expand that, you will see the files that you have in here. Now, this inner folder by itself will not allow Xcode to open the project. The configuration file by itself will not allow Xcode to open the project. Xcode needs these two together in order to open the project. So if you want to move the project to another computer, you want to compress that external folder, or if you have a USB, you want to copy that external folder. Don't make the mistake of copying the inside one or the Xcode project one. So you can close it like this, right click and say compress, and that creates a zip file, and that zip file is what your project has. Of course, currently I did not create anything in the storyboard or in any of my files, so if this project or this zip folder contains an empty project. So I'm gonna delete that, and whenever you feel finished with your project, you compress this, and if you're taking the class, you submit it. If you need to take it with you anywhere, like if you're working in a computer lab or a library, so that's the folder that you need to take with you. Again, there's an outer folder, an inner one with a configuration file. The project is represented by that outer folder. All right, so let's set up our project. So in the configuration area, you set up, all of this is done. If you were on a team with the developer account, you can register that team. What is the deployment target? It's currently set to the most recent version, but you can set it to earlier version if you would like. The device is iPhone. The main interface refers to the name of the storyboard that will be launched first. So if you have more than one storyboard, like here we have two, the single view application comes with a main storyboard and a launch screen storyboard. The main storyboard is linked to the main interface. The launch screen storyboard is linked to the launch screen file. In previous projects, I didn't want a launch screen file, so I switched it to a main. So you don't have to do that. You can create something of your. You can switch this back to main, so you don't have a launch screen, or you can set up a launch screen. You can, if you want to add an app icon, you add the app icon here as well. So that's in the configuration. In the storyboard itself, I need to do some setup. So when you click on the storyboard first, it has the document outliner, which lists all the components inside the storyboard. So I'm going to hide that. And you have the storyboard with the size classes setup, allowing you to build an interface that can adjust itself to the size of the device, which is a great feature. And as you become comfortable, you may use it. You can set up constraints with the pin a component, or set constraints on the component, so that the interface can adjust itself based on the screen size. Or you can click on the file inspector and turn off the size classes and set your storyboard to a specific phone size. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to set it to the iPhone size. And I'm sure in future version there will be multiple screen sizes. Currently it's only iPhone, and it is set to the size of the iPhone 5. So I'm going to disable this, and now I don't have those size classes, and whatever you set your interface, it will work. The schema allow you to specify where you want the app to run. If you have an iPhone and a cable, you can connect it to your Xcode, and it will be on the top here, and you can select it, or you can select one of those simulators. So since I set the screen size to an iPhone 5 or a 5S, they are the same dimensions, I'm gonna say it's the iPhone 5S size. So that's the setup of the storyboard. And this project, I'm gonna make a launch screen. So so here is the launch screen. It's a story. The launch screen is a storyboard as well, and it has the it is loading some files here. So it has the same storyboard that we had in the main screen. So I hid the document outliner, and I'm gonna take out the size classes, and I'm gonna use this as the launch screen. So the launch screen shows up for a few seconds before the app goes on. So I'm gonna add a label. You can add a label and an image and so on. So I'm gonna add a label here, set the size for the label, and maybe in the attribute inspector change the number of lines, and I will use the name for this. So I will say music learning app, and then to make a new line, yeah, to make a new line, you can and you probably can't see it here, but you see it in the text. You use the control enter to make a new line. So I'm going to say this is the developer, then control enter to make another line, and then maybe another one here. So that's 4 lines now. So I'll say you can put today's date, so 2016, and perhaps a copyright or something 2016, and I want those to be centered, and So here is my app. You can set the colors in a different way. You can also add an image, and hopefully you spell correctly. So here is the app, and you can add an image, or maybe in the color, I'm gonna change the color to something other than the white. So this is so here is my launch screen. So now I can run the app at this point for the first time. The simulator takes a few seconds to load for the first time, but then after that it's easy to load it, and it will be an empty app screen. I'm also, since I know the design of this app, I'm going to spend time um, in setting up the different screens. I know I have a game screen, a help screen, and a statistics screens. So in the project setup, I'm going to set up the navigation structure, the different screens, and the different custom controller for all of them as part of the project setup. So while we are waiting for the simulator to come, maybe we can start setting up the navigation. And if you remember from project number 2, or the module 2, the color palette, to set up different screens, we need to use the navigation controller. So select the initial screen in the main storyboard, and I'm gonna make this the game screen. And then hit the click editor and embed in navigation controller. So the navigation controller helps us with the managing the stack of different screens, and allow us to be able to navigate to and from the different screens. The app is almost here. So here is the launch screen, and then the app will load. So it takes longer the first time. It's not going to be like that moving forward. So it gave me an error. So I'm gonna, perhaps I added this navigation in the while it was working or something. So here is the app, and here is the view controller, the empty app. So I'm gonna close the Project Explorer to make some room, and I need to add 2 more screens, and for each screen I need to add a custom controller. The screen that I have, which I'm gonna use as the game screen, is connected to the view controller.swift file, so it already has its own custom controller. If you go to the identity inspector in the utility area, you'll see the name of the custom class, the custom controller class, as view controller. So I will need to add 2 more screens and connect them, and add and create 2 custom controllers and make the connection between all of them. So I'll make this a little bit smaller. Oops. Sorry about that. So add a view controller and add another one. So I added 2 screens in here, and then I need to create 2 custom controllers. So go to File, New File, or right click anywhere and say New File. So File, New File, and we want to create a source file under iOS, source file, Coca Touch class, and then click Next. And I want to create 2 classes, 2 custom view controllers, one for the help screen and one for the statistics screen. To make it a custom view controller, it needs to be a subclass of UI view controller. So make sure under subclass that you select UI view controller. This is the same type that I selected from the utility area. If you look on the right, in the utility area, I selected a screen of type view controller. So this is why I'm selecting the library class UI view controller to be the base of the custom class I'm creating. And I'm gonna create first help view controller as a custom class for the help screen. The language is Swift. And then next, it will tell you where do you want to save it. So I want to save it in the group, meaning that it will appear in the Project Explorer inside the group, and the actual physical file will be saved in the inner folder of the project, and then say create. So here is the help view controller.swift. And then I need to attach it to one of these two screens. So I'm going to select this screen on the top. And under Identity Inspector, the custom class, as you can see, is the default library UI view controller. I want to override this with the help view controller. So click the drop down and you will see the help view controller appears. If you selected the help view controller to be based on UI view controller, you will see it here. If you don't see it, you may scroll all the way down. Sometimes it appears down, sometimes unselect and select again. Or if all goes and you can see it, come in the view controller.swift and check the name after the column. It has to be UI view controller in order for the class to appear in the custom list here. So if everything is good and you see it, you select help view controller. So now I connected this screen on the top with the help view controller, so it's now controlled by a custom control. Now let's add another one for my second screen. So new file, source, Coca Touch class. And I'm going to call this is stats for statistics, view controller, subclass of UI view controller. The language is Swift. Next. This one selected it by default to be part of the outer group. I don't want it in the outer group. I want it in the inner group. And I want it to be saved inside the inner folder, not the outer folder. And then create. So now I have a stats view controller. Make sure it extends after the column UI view controller. Then back to the main storyboard. Select the other screen. The custom class is the library class, so we want to change that to be the stats view controller over here. So now I have all the screens I need in my project, but they are not connected yet. So to connect them, I'm going to connect them from the view controller. So, and in my initial design, I was going to add buttons in here. One button for the help screen, one button for the stats screen. I can use the menu bars to have one for the help and one for the stats. So I'm going to do that here. Or you can add them as regular buttons. So I'm going to use bar button item like I did in project 2. So select the bar button item and add one to the right. And then we want to change that in the, so switch to the attribute inspector and you can choose, so I need a help or a stats, so see if there is an information or help or something that you can use. If not, you can just type a custom help here. Instead of item, you can do help, or maybe the right one, we can do it for the stats. Or you can make an image and add the image over here. Then we add the second one to the left, and I'm going to make this to be help. So I have the stats button and the help button. So the stats button, click on it, press the control and drag from the stats to the stats screen and release. Choose action segue, push segue. And that will, the power of the push segue is that it adds a back button for you. And then click on the help button, control, drag from the help button to the help screen and select push segue as well. So now, as you can see, there are two push segues going from this one screen. So it's better to name them. So if you click on the stats segue, the attribute inspector give you the opportunity to name the segue. So I'm gonna call it stats segue. And in the help segue, I'm gonna call it help segue. The identifier is important. So if you want to use the prepare for segue, there's only one prepare for segue function, but it will be executed under either one of those. So the identifier help you to differentiate between the two. I'm not using the prepare for segue in this project, but it is a good practice whenever you use a segue to identify it with the purpose so that it has an identity. So that's all for the setup of the project. So we now have an empty project that has all our three screens, has a launch screen, has our custom components. So here is the help screen, here is the stats screen, and everything seems to be set up and ready for us to start iteration 2 and build the help screen.